I want you to think about that feeling that you get right before a discovery call, sales call, exploratory call begins, whatever you call it. You're sitting at your desk, you log into Zoom, the prospect appears on the screen, and almost immediately your chest tightens because you know the next 30 minutes are going to be about performance. You're going to dance through slides, explain your background, and desperately try to prove your worth, all while praying they say yes at the end. It's exhausting. And the reason that you dread selling at the end of the day. I was on a discovery call with the VP of sales, ironically, at a fast growing SaaS company. Her name was Priya. Talking about 15 minutes in, she stopped me mid question. Hey, Luis, can I be honest with you? I said, sure, of course. Like, give it to me. Salesperson to salesperson. She said, I've been on 5 calls this week with consultants trying to sell me the same training programs, the same scripts, the same things. And you're the first person who hasn't tried to pitch me anything. You're just asking me questions. And I smiled because that's just how I flow. I'm not trying to sell you anything when we're getting started. I'm just trying to understand if we're even a fit. And so I paused there for a second and she said, you know what, that hit differently. That really does. Because everyone out here is, throwing up slides at me, trying to convince me that they're the answer. And you just showed up trying to understand the question. 2 weeks later, Priya signed a retainer with me, not because I had the best pitch per se. My slides were not the greatest or anything, but because I had the best questions. So today, in this moment, I want you to think of it as a private advisory session just between you and I, just you and me here, right? I'm going to show you the exact framework that I use to run discovery calls that almost close themselves. No pitching, no pushing, no convincing, no sleazing, no chasing people down after the call. Just a 5 phase conversation that turns a stranger into a partner. I'm Luis Báez. I've spent over 15 years in sales leadership and revenue enablement. I was recruited to work at major tech companies like LinkedIn, Google, Uber, Tesla, where I contributed over 600 million in revenue impact. And now I work with management consultants, fractional executives, and boutique agency founders. And I help them replace the exhaustion of hustle with systems that buy them oxygen so they can actually scale. And what I'm about to share is the collaborative discovery method. It's the framework that we install inside the booked, busy, paid accelerator. And every client who implements it reports the same thing. Their close rates go up, their deal sizes increase, and the conversations finally feel like partnering instead of pitching. If we were auditing your discovery calls right now, here's what I'd probably see. Minutes 1 through 5 are awkward small talk, the weather, sports, asking how their week is going. Then minutes 6 through 10, you launch into your background and where you've worked and who you've helped and how many years of experience you have, right? And then minutes 11 through 20, like the real meat and potatoes of everything, you explain your process in maybe painful detail. You start talking through phases, timelines, deliverables, the whole checklist, the whole pitch, right? And then minutes 21 through 25. So, do you have any questions? And then minutes 26 through 30. Great. Well, I'll send you a proposal and we'll go from there. And then what happens? Then they say, yeah, thanks. I'll think about it. And then you never hear from them again. They never respond. You end up chasing them for weeks. And here's why that happens. Problem one, you're telling, not discovering. You're so busy explaining what you do that you never actually learn what they need. Problem two is you're selling too early. You're pitching your solution before you understand their problem. And that's not consulting, that's guessing. Problem three, you're not building a case. You're not gathering the data that you need to make an undeniable proposal. You're just hoping that they'll see the value in everything that you're saying. But premium buyers, they don't buy based on hope. They buy based on evidence, and discovery is where you gather that evidence. So grab a pen, get your note taker popping. Let me show you how to do this differently. The collaborative discovery method has 5 phases, and each one earns permission for the next. Phase one is safety. Most people show up to discovery calls defensive because they've been burned before. So they're skeptical and they're guarded and they're expecting you to just pitch slap them. Your job in phase one is to help them exhale. You do this by asking questions that make them feel understood, not interrogated. So, what inspired you to reach out right now? What's working well that you want to preserve? Before we dive in, what would make this call valuable for you today? Notice what you're not doing. You're not pitching. You're not explaining your process, right? You're creating space for them to tell you their truth. And safety accelerates data. People open up when they feel emotionally secure. And when someone feels heard, they share the real about their problems, not the polished version, right? The messy, vulnerable, expensive problems. And that's where the gold is. Once they're comfortable, then you move into phase two, which is systems. And this is where you stop accepting their first answer and start digging for root causes. Most prospects show up with surface level problems. We need more leads. Those are not symptoms. Your job is to find the system failure that's happening underneath. Okay, so walk me through what happens from lead to close. Where does it all tend to stall? When you can name their problem better than they can, you become the most credible person in the room. And that's not manipulation, that's mastery. Phase three of the method is scale. And that's where most people get a little lazy. You're moving from story to statistics and you're quantifying the pain. The opportunity cost is what you probably have heard it called before. And that's about the gap. So, what is it costing you in lost revenue per quarter? If nothing changes in the next 6 months, what does this look like for your business? Premium buyers don't buy based on feelings, they buy based on evidence. Your job is to help them see their problem in numbers. And when they say their numbers out loud, something powerful happens. They start selling themselves. They're not hearing the cost from you, they're hearing it from their own mouth. And that's infinitely more convincing than anything that you could say. Now you've earned the right to move into phase four, which is all about solutioning. This is the only phase where you talk about what you do. And even here, you're not pitching, you're reflecting. You say something like, based on everything that you've shared, here's what I'm seeing. The core issue is an onboarding infrastructure problem. My method is designed to address exactly this. I start with phase one, I move into phase two, and then I move into phase three. And it all happens in 90 days. Tell me, does this sound like the transformation you're looking for? You just pause. You're naming their problem using their data, and then you're connecting the dots between your method and their metrics. And then suddenly you're not convincing them, you're just showing them the map. And at this point, the map feels less like your opinion and more like the next obvious step, which brings us to phase five, selection. This is where you transition from discovery to decision. And the language that you use here matters. You don't end the call with, oh, I'll send you a proposal. That puts the ball in their court, and then you'll never see them again. Instead, you say, the next step is a strategy session. That's where we quantify the ROI, design the milestones, and walk you through the investment options. Does that sound like a good next step for you? You're not pushing, you're inviting. And when you've done phases one through four really well, the invitation feels inevitable. Let me tell you what happens when you start using this framework. Your discovery calls start feeling like therapy for the prospect. You're reflecting their world back to them better than they can describe it themselves. And then they don't see you as a vendor, they see you as someone who truly gets it. Your proposals, with all the data that they give you, then start to write themselves. Every answer you collect in a discovery call becomes a data point in your proposal. Their current metrics become your ROI projection. Their cost of inaction becomes the opening slide in your presentation. When you're using their words to build your business case, everything flows smoother and your close rate starts to double. By the time you get to the proposal, they already know what the problem is because you diagnosed it together. They already know what it's costing them, and they know what the solution looks like because you spelled it all out for them. And that's not a sale, that is a partnership. Sales is ultimately an exchange of emotion, and the most powerful emotion in a sales conversation isn't excitement, it's relief. That's all discovery is, creating enough safety and clarity that moving forward feels like the only logical thing to do, and it feels like a step towards more relief. If you want to see this framework in action, then we need to have an alignment call. It's exactly what we just talked about. I'll walk you through the 5 phases on our call together, and you'll get to experience the collaborative discovery method for yourself. And by the end of it, you'll know whether working together inside the Booked Busy Paid Accelerator is the right move for you. Go to bookedbusypaid.com and book a time directly on my calendar. This is Unhustling, where we build slower, breathe deeper, and still get it all done on our own terms. I'm Luis Baez, and I'm definitely in your corner.